My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to the show. The truth has arrived, as we always say. And wow, crazy news cycle today, as always. And starting off, I just got to point this out. You know, I did half a show one time talking, this is before Kellyanne Conway was, or she left. I don't want to say she was fired, before she left the White House, of how much of a little shit her daughter is. And it's, she just keeps on proving it. But the crazy thing is that this is Business Insider. Again, I told you this before. I like to go to Drudge just basically to get a laugh, first of all, because of all the nonsense they have on there. But also, when you see these headlines, it's really a way to understand how the brainwashing of the left is occurring, and especially towards young people and idiots. That's who they kind of gear their stuff towards. And Claudia Conway, that's Kellyanne Conway's daughter, according to Business Insider, is one of the most important media people that there is. They're saying, I don't know, hope nobody gets their business advice from Business Insider, but they're saying that Claudia Conway, 15-year-old daughter of the former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway, is an outspoken and often unfiltered critic of the president on TikTok. I mean, they go on to say, I mean, it's true, she has over 1 million followers, but they go on to say, and they're citing, Penny C.S. Andrews, a doctoral researcher in information, media, and communications at the University of Sheffield, says that the 15-year-old Conway daughter is an important political figure in her own right and has a bigger and more relevant audience than most mainstream journalists and broadcasters. I didn't even want to give this any more thought. It's just dumb. It just blows my mind that this is what we're talking about in this day and age, that Business Insider, whatever that is, would be putting this out. It's laughable and scary at the same time. Now, I just want to tell everybody, if you follow me myself on Instagram, I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, of course, YouTube. You can watch this. It's not really watch a show. It's actually aired. The audio portion of it is aired on YouTube as well. But I was on Instagram, and man, it's taken me years just to get to 10,000 followers on Instagram, because I'm not a model or anything like that, and I don't have narcissistic pictures all over the place. And that seems to be what Instagram is all about more than anything. But I'd, gotten up there where I had about 10,000 followers. Today I go to check as I do when I wake up, I check my social media, because social media for me is how I push my brand. It's how I, market my books and this podcast and get the truth out. And I have been deleted off of Instagram for some strange reason. You go on there and it just comes up all of a sudden and says that, you've been deleted, or said that I'd been, first it came up and said for 30 days that my account had been disabled for 30 days. And I thought, wow, that's really convenient. That takes it right through the election. So, okay. And it said you can, if you want, you have to log in if you want to request a review of this. So I'm like, okay. So I go and fill out the thing to request a review, and then it disappears. And then my entire account disappeared. But I tried to redo the name, and it won't redo the name. It's very vague for a reason, and it's done like this for a reason. And trust me, folks, I don't go on there and say and do things that are vulgar or violate their terms of service or their values or whatever they call them nowadays. I don't really do anything. I put my videos up there from this show and little snippets and commercials and tweets, and I put them across there, but there's nothing anything racy or anything like that. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll see if they come back at it, but it's not a big loss. But if you followed me on there, I'm not on there anymore. So you can always find me on these other platforms. But as I told you, my fallback is not Parler. I've heard mixed reviews on that, but I've been asked to be a part of Connect Zing with Drago, who was in the second podcast where he was a Polish citizen whose mother was actually a part of the Freedom Underground in Poland, the socialist Poland that was when it was socialist, and really communism. If you want to get a good understanding of communism and socialism, just listen to podcast number 2 of the experts, and you'll get that from Drago, because he ended up spending almost 3 years in a re-education camp, also known as prison, for having a typewriter. That's all. He just had a typewriter. There's at one point in Poland where at midnight they shut all the phones down and began to arrest people. And he was eventually was one of those people that was arrested. 60,000 people were put in these re-education camps. And then he got out, came to America. Eventually, it took 6 years, I think. Then he became an American citizen and a Navy SEAL. He enlisted the day that he became an American citizen. He went and enlisted and became a Navy SEAL and served for 20 years and retired. He's an amazing man. And now he's a computer programmer, and he started this thing called Connect Zing, and he asked me to be a part of it. And it's still a work in progress. We're looking for investors so that we can, build it up to what all the other social media platforms are. We even toyed with the idea of making anybody who joins that wants to donate, that they could be partial owners as well. So it almost is like user owned. So to just ensure that this type of censorship doesn't happen. And, I wouldn't think of anybody else besides Drago that has, the knowledge and has the importance embedded in his brain about why freedom of speech is so important. So, listen, Connect Zing is where I'm going over. I'll probably get an account on Parler too in the meantime while we still build this thing. But you can get, you can get accounts on both, and eventually we'll get the investors, we'll have the money, and we'll get the better servers, and it'll be bigger and bigger. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, who knows what's going to happen after November? Who knows? I'm going to be speaking. I'm the keynote speaker. Talk about scary for the UDT SEAL Museum on November 7th. If you've never been to the muster, come down to the muster. They usually have demos of different types, and it's just an incredible thing to see and meet SEALs and hear from people. And I'm the keynote speaker, and that's probably one of the scariest things I'll ever do. There's nothing like being in front of a bunch of old frogmen and trying to sound relevant. So that ought to be. I'm already working on what my diet will be the week leading up to that, so I don't throw up when I'm on stage in front of all these guys. So anyway, I just want to talk about a couple things real quick. I went through all these headlines, as I always do, and I'm on the road right now. I'm traveling, and right now I'm somewhere in the middle of, I think I'm right on the edge of New Mexico, and I think I'm right on the edge on the eastern side of New Mexico, and at a truck stop, and I've got my equipment here, and I pulled it out before I go to sleep, and I've got to make it, just so you know, 1,800 more miles, and I have until Friday evening to drive it. So it's going to be a long haul, but I pulled up some of the headlines that I thought were relevant, not because they're relevant, but because the stories behind them, and not the stories that they're telling you in these headlines. For instance, the president has halted the stimulus talks until the elections happen. I think that's fantastic. I don't think, to be honest with you, one of the stories here is that the airline and transit system are going to be undercut, and they're already suffering, right? Well, listen, I know some about the transit system and the airline industry. I was an air marshal for a while, and I know people who work for the airline industry that are conservative, by the way, and it's a shit show. It is a total shit show there. And they made billions of dollars over the past couple of years, huge profits, and then because of COVID, people stopped flying and they suffered. Well, I got to be honest with you. I think people would still be flying if it wasn't such a crappy time to fly. American Airlines, I think, is the quintessential failure in all this. I remember when I was an air marshal in 2002, American Airlines was my favorite airline to fly on. It had the most senior people, because everybody was getting laid off. If you were a young flight attendant or a young pilot, they had to really crunch it, and they had the most senior people there. The space in the seats was unbelievable. Everybody was genuinely nice and cared about what was happening, and that progressed through the years, all the way up until 2013, 2014 when I was flying, doing media stuff and meeting people, 2015, and then something happened. American Airlines just changed. They squished those seats so tight together that you can't even breathe. My knees are crammed into me. They're nasty. The flight attendants are nasty. I don't know if it's because they're mad or if they just hired nasty people. But they went from what I thought was probably the greatest group of flight attendants. Delta had some great flight attendants. Delta's another one, off the deep end, off the left. But American Airlines truly, I think, is the greatest downfall. They had just a record-breaking profit season in 2018 and 2019, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then this year, they're just hemorrhaging. Yet, at the same time they're doing that, they're playing political correctness because of the woke mentality in that airline. Same thing with Delta and these other ones. And I think, personally, whoever makes it through this is not going to be the most woke. They're going to be the smartest, and they're going to have the cheapest flights. And they're not going to make the biggest deals about masks and things like that. They're going to be smart about it. And if they don't make it through, then that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Listen, this is business. And if things fail, they fail. Pilots are still going to eventually get jobs. Flight attendants will get jobs. Airlines will come about. But it's about damn time people start, service-oriented companies start providing service. I mean, you get on to an aircraft, you're paying way too much money as it is. You cannot even sit down if you're over 6 feet tall. You're in a dry, parched environment that is pressurized at 9,000 feet, and they won't even give you water on some of these flights. They force you into these things, and they won't even. Not only will they charge you an arm and a leg for food, but for some reason, all the airports around. I don't know if you've realized this. This happened over the past couple of years. They just did away with all the mainstream restaurants that we're used to, and they just put in these crap no-name things. It's like the other side of it. Well, no, I'm not going to say other side of a 45 record, and I'll be dating myself, but nobody knows the majority of these things in restaurants. They're these off-brand name restaurants. And they don't have them. You ever notice they don't have them like something right next to the gate that you can just grab before you go on the plane? Even a kiosk with water and sandwiches. They never have that. It's like you got to run all the way down there and you got to come all the way back, and I don't know. They design these things like prisons. It's like they don't really care what you think. You got to get here, there, and get out of here, and they're going to charge you arm and leg. So I don't feel real bad for the airline industry. I don't. I'm sorry. I do find also as I travel across country how one place will be $1.95 for gas, and then you go 100 miles down the road, and it's $2.40 for gas. I don't stop there for gas if I don't have to. I go to the next place. Here's another headline. I'm going to leave this one for the end, but the headline says, how New Jersey nursing home suffered one of America's deadliest outbreaks. And this is on wallstreetjournal.com. I don't even have to read in this, okay? They're going to go through and they're going to describe, what happened and how this occurred, and put the personal spin in it. Listen, it happened because the New Jersey governor, just like Governor Cuomo in New York, just like these other Democrat governors, put COVID positive patients in there. And these nursing homes, that's the number one. The criminal governor, the murdering governor, put COVID patients in these elderly homes. But here's the other thing. These clinics that claim to be rehab or claim to be elderly care, they are neither. Their ability to rehab you is about the same as if you jumped over the counter at McDonald's and asked somebody to give you a back rub. That's about it. It's about the same level of care and about the same level of experience. It's the biggest scam going, and they will rob you blind until they take all your money, and then they'll go and rob Medicaid or Medicare. I think it's Medicaid blind. Horror stories. Hellholes. That's what those places are. And they were dumping grounds for COVID positive patients. And I got to tell you, I got to say this. I'm trying to think of a politically correct way. I don't like using politically correct, but I got to be careful. I mean, people just dump you if you say the wrong thing, or investigate you. But I think Cuomo and these other governors, with particularly Cuomo, though, this guy has unleashed a dictator type of leadership at the state level that is just being overlooked by the majority of media and law enforcement and politicians. I mean, I've noticed now that we have no safeguards in place except for voting, and you see how that's being taken away. But there's no safeguards in place if somebody develops into a dictator in a state. We see how powerful these governors are. And I think that these governors should, if I had it my way, they should be investigated, they should be tried, and Andrew Cuomo should be given the death penalty and killed. That's what I believe. And I think the same would be said with any other dictator who killed thousands of people and then turned around and made it sound as though it was God's fault. God's not the one who put him in those elderly clinics. God's not the one who decided not to put him where there was nobody at, like the Jacob Javits Center or the place way out in Long Island by Stony Brook University, where they spent, I don't know, millions and millions of dollars and nobody was put in there, or the Navy ship where nobody was put in there. Same thing with Jersey. If this was a dictator in another country and our military went after them and overthrew them, they would probably be killed for what they've done. I mean, we're looking at over 60,000 people dead because of these Democrat governors putting these people in elderly clinics. I'm telling you right now, folks, if you mistakenly killed, not mistakenly, if you made a decision and you killed 10,000 people, like Cuomo's probably killed well over 11,000 that we even come close to knowing about. If you had done that and then you just flaunted it and dared people to criticize you, if it was just you and not the governor, you would get the death penalty. You would be killed by the government. And I think that same sentence should be laid down on Cuomo. He disgusts me. So that's behind that headline. How New Jersey nursing homes suffered one of America's deadliest outbreaks. Okay, Wall Street Journal. Here's the story in a nutshell. Because the governor there is a murderer. Freaking. Here's another one. Now, I'm not going to stay on here too long tonight because, again, I'm sitting in the back of a van in a truck stop, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning East Coast time, and I'm ready to go to sleep. But this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And it says so much about what I've been saying about Chad Wolf. I'm an equal opportunity, I don't want to say hater, disliker. Chad Wolf, who is the head of DHS under President Trump, who I'm a Trump supporter. I never try to hide that. But I think Chad Wolf is one of the dumbest things, people that President Trump has ever put into place. He comes out and says, and I'm just going to read the headline, DHS, white supremacists are the most lethal domestic extremist threat. Where are they getting this information? I mean, if Chad Wolf is trying to do this to help the president out, it's wrong. It says, last year was the deadliest for incidents of domestic extremists in 25 years. And white supremacists were responsible for the vast majority of people killed in them, Homeland Security said Tuesday in a new threat assessment. Show me where this is happening. I have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to domestic extremists killing. I mean, you look at what's happening right now. It is not. I don't know who they consider to be white supremacists. If it is people that deal drugs and they're white, or if it's people in a militia. Of course, you don't really hear of anybody being killed by a militia, like the militia set up there with the aim of killing. So I don't know where all this threat comes from. I'm going to reach out to some of my sources tomorrow and see what they say, but I have no clue where this is coming from. It says the long-awaited report labeled white supremacists, quote, the most persistent and lethal, unquote, domestic threat to the country, though Acting Secretary Chad F. Wolf also warned of an alarming rise of violent protest trading on anti-authority messages. This is about as dumb as the one I'm saving for the end, about the what was just released about Trump authorized the declassification of all Russian collusion, Hillary Clinton emails, and the probe documents. How is this a secret? You don't even have to read. The names have been redacted in some of these. It's no secret. We know who the players are. Comey, Obama, Hillary Clinton, Peter Strzok, Brennan, Clapper. We already know all this stuff. We already know that the FBI used fictitious information that was created by somebody who worked with the Russians. We just have to see it for it to be. I mean, this is what I don't get, folks. If you put old people in elderly clinics and they all died and you flaunted it, you would go to jail and probably get the death penalty. If you did what Hillary Clinton did and you overthrew an election and you were just somebody, you weren't like a senior executive service or a deputy director or a director, you would go to jail for that, for treason. Nothing happens to these people, and it's driving me crazy. It's like every single night I want to come on here and I just want to reach out and smack every single one of you to wake up. I was looking, on Facebook. I know a lot of people in the Republican Party. I just talked about this yesterday. And they're all posing, taking selfies, and I love them all, but come on. You got to realize it's bad. We are in bad shape. This country is being taken over by the left. And I'm not just talking about politically. I'm talking about this country is being ruined. And there's no celebrating about it. I don't know how people even can muster up a smile and put on the dresses and go out and hang out. It's bad. And we don't know if President Trump is going to win. It's turning into a complete disaster in the White House. And I said it last night, I'll say it again. The sheer number of people getting coronavirus in the White House right now, to me, is not a mistake. Something is going on there where, it is like anybody that's associated with the White House now has coronavirus. Although you don't hear of any of them dying yet. I don't think it's, to tell you the truth, I don't think you're going to hear that. I was going to go through this thing, this article where it's talking about the stuff that has been declassified. But Trump, this is the thing. Trump said in a tweet, he said he's already declassified this stuff and it hasn't been released. I've talked about this numerous times. Two things I've mentioned over and over and over again is that source, this just screams human sources. The whole thing is a setup. You can see the way it's worked. It was manufactured and directed. It's not like a source just showed up with this information and it was fake. They were directed to create it in a covert manner to make it look like it was real. And then the other thing is I talked about these senior executive service members who if they don't like what the president or whoever says, they just sit on it. They don't do anything. Man, if I was the president, I would have, as soon as he said it's declassified and they didn't do anything with it, I would have had a press conference. I would have read every bit of it in that press conference. Even if he just sat there with somebody else reading it, I would have just let it all out. He's the declassifier. He's the ultimate declassifier. It's just this whole thing is just collapsing. The country is collapsing. It's the same thing every day. I'm aggravated. I mean, there's other headlines, but it's just laughable. I mean, there's nothing really. It's just they're trying. If you look at Drudge Report and you look at what they put, it's as if the world is coming to an end. If you look at Fox News, I don't know. If I see that guy from the New York Times one more time where they say, former New York Times reporter says this, or he weighs in on this. It could be anything. It could be talking about a meteor coming to the freaking earth. It could be talking about COVID and how it should be treated, or, whatever. That guy's always got, it's all the big insight from former New York Times reporter on Fox News. That's their thing. That and Don Lemon. They love to talk about Don Lemon. Nobody gives a shit what Don Lemon says, all right? Nobody cares. Don Lemon's a fruitcake, and nobody cares what he has to say. Yet Fox News every other day, Don Lemon. Anyway, I that's about it. I really don't have much else to say. But I will leave you with this. As I go through the headlines today, as I go through the headlines every day, what keeps jumping out at me is the fact that the American public is not the ones in the headlines. The American public, the ones that are going to suffer the most, the ones who have the most to lose. Where's your headline? Where's the headline that says the American population stood up and made it stop? Where is that headline? Where's the headline that said revolt, the citizens revolt? Where is it? That's the headline we need. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.